guys, Nick here from J4U Studios, and welcome back to another episode of the J4U podcast. That is right, we are back here in this space, the Abyss of Darkness, which actually brings me to the first thing I want to talk about. This is probably going to be the last episode of the J4U podcast in this location, because I'll be back in the main Tucson office in about 3 to 4 weeks, depending on when this comes out. And then from there, I'll be there for the rest of summer. And then I'll come back up to Flag, but I won't be in this office space. I'll be in a new space, which will be exciting and cool. So I'm super hyped for that. But yeah, probably the last J4U podcast in this setup. So just wanted to let you guys know of that. And yeah, we got a good amount of stuff to talk about in this episode of the J4U podcast. A lot of Marvel stuff, some superhero stuff, and some trailer news. So let's jump right into it. With kind of just a little bit of intro news. So Disney released a little bit of a sneak peek of the Disney Plus streaming service that's going to be coming out. I think it was just kind of screenshot of just the normal homepage for that, but it's just crazy seeing Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and then they had something else, I forget what it was, but another category, and it was like, just the fact that they own all these properties, I definitely think that the Disney Plus streaming service is going to work out for them big time. I mean, the fact that they'll have every Marvel movie on there, all the Star Wars stuff, original content, Pixar movies, Disney movies, they're just golden, they're set. And I just definitely think this is going to be a huge thing for them, especially because, I might be wrong about this, but I did hear that it's going to be cheaper than Netflix and Hulu, so they're going to be selling their subscription service for less. I believe they were looking at $8 a month, whereas Netflix is like $12 plus a month. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I've heard recently. So if they do that, then they are just golden, and it will be really interesting to see how this messes with the streaming service ecosystem. So I'll definitely be watching and paying attention to that. And who knows, I might also look towards getting the Disney streaming service, because man, do I want to have the ability to watch every Marvel movie and just Disney movies in general. Oh, that sounds incredible. But anyway, so the first bit of real movie news, though, aside from kind of, Disney streaming service, is a little bit less movie news and more news, but in terms of actual movie news, Shazam has come out since the last episode of the J4U podcast. In fact, I was doing the last episode of the J4U podcast, which was the Q&A episode, literally the day I was gonna go see Shazam. I was doing that live stream and then I was taking off to go see Shazam, because I was seeing an early screening, which was awesome that they were doing that, and it shows DC was actually really confident in this movie, which is something I didn't, well, I'm glad they were confident, but it's like, the fact that they were so confident to let reviewers put their reviews out early, let reviewers see the movie, like, 3 weeks early or something like that, it's just showing that they were pretty confident with this movie, and I think it paid off. In fact, I really enjoyed Shazam, but I know so many people who just loved Shazam, and it's really good to hear people complimenting a DC movie. Like, I thought Zachary Levi killed it, and the villain wasn't perfect, but I definitely think, comparatively to the other DCEU villains, he was good, and at least they attempted to give him a backstory and motivation for what he was doing. And The Rock actually did a really interesting video about Shazam, because he was one of the producers on it, basically talking about the reason why Black Adam wasn't in the movie, and the fact that they're going to be shooting the Black Adam movie in, he said, about a year, which makes sense with all the different movies he's going to be shooting between now and then. So it just shows, what I love about that video, I guess, is that he's just so passionate about playing Black Adam and wanting the Shazam movie to be good, that he was able to, as an actor, separate himself and say, okay, yes, I want to be in the Shazam movie, but I want to make sure the Shazam movie and origin story hits a home run, so let's not put Black Adam in this movie, which was really cool to hear him say. But yeah, I guess if you want to know my full thoughts on Shazam, I did a movie review of it. You can just find it in the channel, so go check it out. Let's see. Ooh, so this is going to be a big category, and this is probably something that will take up a good amount of the podcast here, but we are just, a week, 10 days, as of recording this, away from Endgame coming out. So what I wanted to do is kind of give the last thoughts before I go see Endgame, and kind of do a little bit of last theorizing before I go and see it and you guys go and see it. So why don't we just kind of do that? So I kind of have reached a point, though, I will say, in terms of my series, where I've stopped watching the trailers and stuff. Like, they put out a little clip, like a 2-minute clip, and I started watching the first 10 seconds of it and went, I don't need to see this, and I haven't seen anything since. So I might be missing a few bits of knowledge that you guys have, but I'll do my best to try and create a series, because I'm just happy that I was able to, I don't want to say predict, because I wouldn't call it a full-on prediction, but I was able to, I had the same idea of the snap for the ending that the Russos did, because I knew the comic books they were going off of. So the fact that I was able to kind of call the snap made me really happy, so I want to see if I can get even somewhat close in Endgame, because the cast of Endgame basically just said that while they don't really know what the movie's about, the ending is going to be very satisfying to fans, is kind of what they were saying. Which, again, is interesting considering they don't know anything about the movie, but they can bet on that, so odds are they know a little something or two, but yeah, I'm just really excited. But to kind of kick off theorizing here, or I'll start off with just my thoughts before going in. I think that box office-wise, this is going to kick Infinity War's ass, like, which is saying something. Just looking at the pre-sales for tickets, they've just crushed it. So I definitely think from a financial standpoint, no matter how the movie is, this is going to be a huge win for Marvel and Disney. But in terms of the actual quality of the movie, the fact that they are just doing the core 6 Avengers with a few extra people like Rocket, Nebula, etc., I think just really bodes well to the fact that this is going to be the end of a chapter. I believe Kevin Feige coined it the Infinity Saga. That, like, Infinity War was kind of marketed as, like, yeah, this is the end of the road, but it really wasn't. This is kind of the capstone. This is kind of the, like, last chapter of the MCU as we know it. And then I think we're going to move into a more cosmic space / mutant-centric version of the MCU. But I think as we know it, the MCU is going to end after this movie and kind of restart a new, not in terms of continuity or reboots, but in terms of the type of stories they tell. Like, this one was very much about the Infinity Stones. Even Captain Marvel was about an Infinity Stone. It was there. I think after Endgame, the Infinity Stones aren't going to matter. They're not going to play a role in terms of the story or anything, aside from the fact that the, was it the Space Stone? One of the stones can give people powers. I think that's the only thing that's going to translate, and maybe something that when they undo the snap or whatever happens there is going to bring people back, and some of the people who get brought back maybe have mutant powers, or something along that line of, because of what they do at Endgame, it gives birth to mutants, and brings birth to the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, things like that. Doctor Doom gets in the picture being like, wow, that whole snap thing was crazy, let me see if I can get some gain on this. Magneto can come up because he's like, you know, obviously we can't trust these people, they let Thanos do the snap, so I'm going to bring my Brotherhood out of the woodworks, protect mutants, and overthrow the powers that be, kind of a thing. But, like, I think what happens in Endgame is going to affect the MCU in terms of letting the Fox properties have a spot in the timeline. Then I also believe we'll get more cosmic stuff, probably. I'm guessing Thor's gonna survive, because, I mean, Chris Hemsworth has said that he really likes the character and what they did with Ragnarok. With the success of Ragnarok, I could see that being enough of a justification for them to be like, you know, let's do more Thor movies like Ragnarok, or at least movies that Thor is in like Ragnarok. So, that's true. I don't know if he'll totally get his own solo film for a while, but I definitely think Thor will survive and play a role in other people's movies, and I think he could totally take more of an Odin seat, where, like, he typically doesn't get involved in shit unless it's like a Galactus level problem or a big type of issue. Then he'll get out of his chair and help out. But I could totally see him being like the new Odin, taking care of Asgard, and that's really it. And I guess now that we're kind of getting into the who lives and who dies of it all, let me see here. So, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not expecting, which I'm kind of bummed about, a whole lot of deaths in Endgame. I think that was Infinity War. Infinity War is the one where people die, and I think that this one will get one, maybe 2 or 3 Avengers who are going to die, and then the rest are going to get undone in the snap. So the people who died in Infinity War, from a snap, I think are going to come back. So that's your Spider-Man, your Chris Pratt, what's his name, Star-Lord, your Black Panther, your Doctor Strange, Spider-Man. Those people are coming back at the end of Endgame. But I think like Gamora, who died in Infinity War but not from a snap, will stay dead. So yeah, that's also including Vision, who technically didn't die from the snap. He died right before it by the stone getting crushed. And I know there's a new WandaVision show they're announcing, and I'm really hoping that's a prequel. It could not be, and I could totally see that. And it's basically because they're not going to get another movie going forward, that's how they continue their story. But I want Infinity War to have consequence. I don't want it to be everything shit that happened in Infinity War just gets undone as like it never happened. I want it to happen and have lasting effects on the MCU. Even if that's not as big as everyone who died in the snap stays dead, at least killing off the people who died in a non-snap related deaths. They should stay dead. And yeah, so anyway, going back to who lives and who dies, Thor I think is gonna live. And I'm gonna be honest, I think Tony is going to live. I go back and forth on this, but I think it's him or Cap are the people who are gonna die. One of them. I don't think both are gonna live. They could, but I don't think so. And I don't think that both are gonna die. They could, I don't think so. I think one of the two is gonna die, and the other's going to basically defeat Thanos because of the sacrifice made by the other person. And here's my justification to back up why I think Tony's the one who lives, and Cap, whose shirt I'm wearing right now, is going to be the one who dies. And that's because basically the story arc, I feel, I mean, yes, Tony's been kind of the main character of the MCU, so it would kind of make sense for him to die and they restart with a new main character for the next chapter, basically, but Tony, at least as of Infinity War, is all about the future. And I mean, that's the big thing with his character in general, but like, his part in Infinity War starts by saying like, hey, he and Pepper, they're about to get married. And they're planning the wedding and all that, maybe talking about kids. That's all stuff about the future. And I rewatched Winter Soldier the other day, and just it even stuck out to me then that Cap is kind of a man who's lost. Not lost as in a battle, but lost as in not knowing really who he is. He knows his values, but he doesn't really know as a person who he is, because that person is still back in the 40s. Like, he never really moved on from Peggy. And you see that from that first trailer, which they haven't shown that shot again, which I find really interesting, of him looking at the picture of Peggy, which is him basically saying, I am fighting for my values, yes, but I'm really fighting for my past. Whereas Tony, you see him on the ship working to try and get back to Earth to be with Pepper, which means he's fighting for his future. So in terms of one of them making a sacrifice, I think it would mean more if Cap is the one to sacrifice himself so that Tony can use the Infinity Gauntlet, undo the snap, or defeat Thanos or whatever. So it would kind of play out as, you know, because they're brothers. They'll make up from what happened in Civil War, come to a place where they love each other as brothers, but realizing that one of them does have to die because of that line that we keep hearing in the trailer, whatever it takes. The whatever it takes is Cap's sacrifice. That he's going to say, Tony, kill me, you can use the Soul Stone, undo the snap, and defeat Thanos. So that way, Cap will die, and as dark as it is, get to be with Peggy. And Tony, he'll live and get to be with Pepper. So they both get what they want. And it even goes to the point where they both get what they want because Cap wanted to do whatever it takes to bring everyone back and kind of restore the order. And that's all about his values. He's that very Boy Scouty, doing whatever it takes for the good of humanity kind of a thing. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's less about doing whatever it takes and more about following the rules, but still, it's kind of that thing of doing the right thing, I guess. That's the simplest way to say it. Doing the right thing is kind of Cap's mantra. So sacrificing himself for the rest of humanity is doing the right thing. It's a sacrifice that needs to be made. So that's why I'm predicting Cap will be the one who dies in Endgame. Tony will live, and he'll be the one to kind of stop Thanos, of course with the other Avengers' help. And the Cap would be the big death of that. So I'm not sure, though, who else would die. Maybe we'd see a War Machine death, I don't know. Maybe a Nebula death, again, I don't know. It just depends what they want to do as a Guardians of the Galaxy film, because, funny enough, James Gunn is back on to direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3, using the script that he wrote way back when. It's funny, though, the one stipulation I heard with that is that James Gunn is going to direct that after he directs the Suicide Squad movie that he's been writing for DC. So it's kind of like, no, from Marvel, like, damn it, why did we fire him? Now he's working for DC, he's coming back, but he's doing their movie first. Crap, but he is coming back, which is good news. But anyway, I digress, moving a little off topic here. So yeah, it just depends what they want to do as a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, depending on who lives and who dies. Like, for instance, if Gamora's in his script, then, oops, I guess she's coming back. But maybe she's not, maybe he knows and kind of gave input on who should die in Infinity War and Endgame, so that he knew what characters he could use for his script, so I don't know. But yeah, with that said, I think that Hawkeye, we could see him die, but I personally don't think so, just because we're seeing him as Ronin in this movie, and that character change gives me faith that he's gonna live. Same kind of thing for Hulk, because we're seeing kind of the more Dr. Hulk intellect of Bruce Banner, but the body and muscle of the Hulk. Like, that kind of a character change I don't think they're gonna do for one movie and then kill them off. I think that's going to be like, here's the direction we're taking this character from now till at least another movie. It would be like they'd have Hulk talk in Ragnarok and then immediately killed him in Ragnarok. Like, that doesn't quite fit. It's a path. It's a trajectory. You don't just kill them halfway through their trajectory without pissing off all the fans. You need to, especially that's not what Marvel's about. Marvel's about setup, payoff, letting them go kind of through their full arc. So this seems like the beginning of an arc for Hawkeye, and not the end, unless they're tying it in with Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, with his whole family thing. Then it could be the end of his arc, but it just depends on execution, how they execute it. If they execute it as, this is the next steps, the next evolution of Hawkeye, or is this a man who has lost everything and is doing whatever it takes to get them back, even if that means sacrificing himself for his family to live again. So that could happen, but I again, not seeing the movie or the trajectory they're going for, don't see it as the end of his arc. I'm seeing it as the next step in his arc. But again, execution could do something differently. I don't think Hulk's gonna die, because we're seeing this, like I said, the whole thing with Hawkeye is the next step. In Hawkeye, again, I could justify why they could kill him off. I can't really do that for Hulk, other than the fact that, from a business standpoint, Columbia Pictures owns the rights to a solo Hulk movie, so if they don't want to put Hulk in another movie, they'd rather give him a solo film but can't, then maybe they're like, okay, well then there's nothing we can really do with the Hulk. We might as well kill him off now. Again, but that's more of a business kill than it is a because the character blank. You know, it would be killing him off because of the corporate stuff, which is possible. I don't think so, though. Again, I could be wrong. And I kind of want to be wrong about some of these, because in my prediction, Cap could be the only person who dies. Which I want Endgame and Infinity War to both have stakes. Things that are like huge WTFs to show, like, yes, this is the end of this chapter, so it needs to feel like an end, but I don't want to say like a happy ending, a satisfying ending, which I think is an important difference, because there's a difference between a happy ending, a good ending, and a satisfying ending. The words they used were a satisfying ending, which means it pays off all the setups from throughout the whole MCU. That would be a satisfying ending. A happy ending would be, yay, they defeat Thanos, bring everybody back, even the people who didn't die from the snap, and everything is good-go-lucky. I don't think that's what they're going to do, and I hope that's not what they're going to do. Then there's a good ending, which a good ending doesn't mean that it's satisfying. It doesn't mean it pays off anything, and it doesn't mean that it leaves you in a kind of moment of, oh wow, that was great. Like, I'd argue, I thought Infinity War was the satisfying ending. A lot of people didn't. Because the snap to a lot of people was more of a question mark, because they didn't know the comics, didn't know the directions they were going. So to a lot of people, Infinity War wasn't a satisfying ending. So that would be an example of a good ending, not a satisfying ending. They said satisfying ending. So, I've totally forgot what track I was going on there, but that's kind of what I'm keeping in mind when I'm predicting what they're going to do here. So yeah, I'm really curious. I kind of do hope, like I said, I get some stuff wrong, because I do want people to die, but I do understand that if they're going for a satisfying ending, like they said they were, it may not be in their best interest to kill off people and have a good ending. You know, it's a different thing. And then the last thing I want to talk about was Endgame, I guess. It's kind of my plot theory. So based off from the trailers, here's what I anticipate happening. We start the film off relatively soon after the snap happened. I'm talking like maybe months, could be a year, but I'm guessing less time has passed than that. I'm guessing maybe a couple months, hell, it could be a couple weeks or a couple days, but just not a whole lot of time has passed. Since Infinity War, that's when you see them looking at the monitor and they're like, shit, this is a nightmare, oh, I've had better nightmares than this, that kind of stuff. And then they have that whole thing. Basically, then that's kind of the regroup, the Avengers kind of be like, well, what's our next plan of attack? They're looking at the Captain Marvel pager. Captain Marvel shows up. She's like, what happened? Where's Fury? They explain the snap. She's like, okay, then let's just go kill Thanos. They're like, what? You're crazy. But okay, let's go kill Thanos. They go to Titan, because he used the gauntlet there, to fight Thanos. He kicks their ass. And something happens at the end of that fight. I don't know what that something is, but it could be either the start of, like, the time travel BARFing technology stuff, or it could just be somehow they get back to Earth, just from getting their ass kicked by Thanos. But it can't just be ass kicked by Thanos. It needs to be something that kind of is like, wow, that sucked, but we're now on a path towards really beating him, as opposed to just impulsively going and fighting. It's now like, oh, now we have an actual plan. And that's when you see a big time jump happen. I'm guessing it could be like a year, because the reason I think there's a big time jump is because there are scenes of Scarlet Witch where she has just her white short hair. Then there are other scenes we see in the trailer where she has red coming through and then white tips, which means her hair has grown a lot. And then there are scenes of her with just the red hair, which means her hair has grown even more. So I'm guessing there's a significant amount of time that passes throughout the 3-hour movie, but it starts soon after Endgame because we see her with her Endgame hair. Infinity War. Very close to Infinity War because we see her with her Infinity War hair. Sorry about that. So yeah, and then aside from that, they execute a plan. Thanos is like, what the hell are you doing? You're gonna undo my snap. I'm pissed. Follows them. And I think it's going to be a trip down memory lane. Because we see them, this is one of the things that I feel less confident about, by the way. We see them in New York as in Avengers 1 New York, with kind of the wrist things, which kind of show maybe it's BARFing, maybe it's using the quantum realm stuff to time travel. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think the quantum realm is stronger than the BARFing technology because of Ant-Man. It gives him a reason to be there. And they already explained, like, you can jump through points in time, theoretically. We just would have to figure out the how of it. And who knows, maybe that's really just the blue shrink thing. I don't know. Now I'm just kind of rambling off. But anyway, trip down memory lane because we see the Avengers New York fight. And it's kind of a new version of the New York fight because now Ant-Man will be there. And possibly Thanos could be there. Which would be interesting. So it's basically kind of revisiting that fight from the Avengers movie now. I don't know what the other Avengers are doing because we only have seen like Cap, Hulk, Iron Man, Ant-Man there. So maybe Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, Thor, Captain Marvel are doing something else. We don't know. Maybe they're going to a different point. And then I think it's the Lego sets that we've seen other moments in Marvel. Like we've seen some of the Iron Man armor from Iron Man 3. So I don't know, maybe they'll go to like Age of Ultron or a different movie and mess with the timeline there. And maybe the reasoning for why they're doing this is to go back in time and take the stones before Thanos gets them in Infinity War. It's the only thing I can think of. I'm kind of hoping that that's not what they do, because that seems a little bit too obvious. I'd love it if it were something, maybe not more complicated, but less of the first thing you think of why would they time travel. More of a like, oh, that makes so much sense and I never thought of it, as opposed to, why are they going to time travel? Oh, to get the Infinity Stones, duh. You know? So, anyway, for whatever reason though, they're kind of time traveling or revisiting moments from the past MCU. Again, because it's kind of that last chapter, it's almost like one of the clip episodes of a TV show where they're like, you remember that one time where, and then they show the clip from that episode of the TV show? Only this one is going to be them physically there doing stuff. They have a goal. But anyway, going through past moments in the MCU. Not many, I'm guessing maybe 1, 2, or 3, like something in that realm. But however they do it, they're able to get the Infinity Stones from Thanos. Thanos is pissed. He goes to the Avengers base before they can undo the snap, and is like, I'm going to murder you all. Or maybe it's after they do the snap. I don't know. But something where he goes to the Avengers base is like, I'm going to murder you all. And that's where we get the final fight where there's a sacrifice to be made. Again, I could be totally off with that, or I could be straight on point with it. I'm hoping that I'm not right, if I'm being totally honest. I hope I get some things right, or some things kind of right, and I'm going to be honest, odds are when I'm watching the movie, I'll know pretty quickly what I'm going to get right or wrong, based on, again, execution of everything. So as soon as they give the beginning of a payoff, or start setting up something that's going to happen in Endgame, that will very quickly tell me how right or wrong I am. So, I'm kind of hoping that I'm wrong in general. Plus, because that will add to the surprise. But, I don't know. Let me know what your theories are for Endgame. In the comments below, I would love to hear them. So, the next thing we're going to talk about is the reviews for Hellboy. Now, normally I don't talk about, other people's reviews of a movie, but I want to bring it up because on the podcast we've done trailer reactions for Hellboy, the new one. I know Marco was pretty passionate about his feelings. I'm a big Hellboy fan, but as much as I love the movies, the Guillermo del Toro movies, I also am interested about the comics, and it seems like they're pulling more from the comics than they are those movies. But the reviews have come out, and they're not great. I will say the one thing I've noticed about most of the reviews is they're saying it's not the worst movie ever, but it's still not great. Like, it's kind of that more middle tier, bumped the mic, more middle tier bad, to where it's like, it's watchable, but it has problems. Which is nice to hear that it's not like Fanforstic level bad, but I'll still have to see it and develop my own opinion, and when I do, I will let you guys know. But yeah. Ooh, and the Joker trailer. So please, please, please watch my trailer reaction for the Joker movie. You'll get all my thoughts in a more, I don't want to say condensed. What's the opposite of condensed? You get more of my thoughts on the trailer from my trailer reaction, I guess I'll say. But I am just so excited for that movie. I've seen a lot of people online who are, it's kind of a divide of there. The people who are like, no, Joker doesn't need an origin story. This is not going to be good. Blah, 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 blah. And then there are other people like me who are like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. Because I agree. Joker's one of the few characters who really doesn't need an origin story and sometimes works better without one. With that said, though, I think if you're going to do an origin story, this is how you do it. Like, it's one of those things where, yes, maybe I wouldn't have started what this movie started, but I like how it's doing it. So, I'm totally on board with that. And the comics have even given the Joker an origin story for the Killing Joke. So, I see definitely roots of Killing Joke in this movie. And I'm really curious to see, because it seems like they're making a lot of changes, because obviously this version of Joker didn't fall in a vat of chemicals, and it seems like we're getting less of the crime side of him, and it's more of just a man whose society has driven mad, which I really find interesting, because while I totally would have gone the same direction that they're going for this movie, I really, at one point, had a kind of, I think while I was editing my trailer reaction, question something about this movie. And it's one of those things of, this is going to be a really interesting story, and I really hope they pull it off. But is this the kind of story that you want to tell? Because it is about society and all that stuff, and how society could drive someone mad, but through the lens of a more realistic perspective, which could be dangerous. And that's my only worry I have. And I honestly think that's what the conversation should be about. It's less about should this movie be made because the Joker doesn't need an origin story. Less of that, more of, well, what are the consequences this movie could have, is my only worry. Is that kind of, does art imitate life, or does life imitate art debate? Because, on the one hand, the argument that I know I would typically make would be that we should tell society kind of as it is, not sugarcoat it, so that the viewers, as they watch it, can question, like, is this really the world that we want to live in? Show it as being gritty, show it as being shitty, so that way we can have the thought of, well, if you don't like it, know that we're depicting reality as it is, so make a change in the real life, don't bitch about the movie. But the other hand of that is, by showing how society really is to someone who doesn't see society that way, it could drive them to be more cynical, or in the case of the Joker, to empathize with the Joker, which is always a very dangerous thing, because that's what really, in my opinion, is one of the big reasons that Heath Ledger is not with us today. It's not the only reason, of course not. There's a lot of mental health stuff involved with that. But the way that he did his method acting for the Joker did something really interesting. It's kind of a sacrifice to the art. He went so hardcore on playing the Joker that he did what method actors should do. They became the Joker. He became the Joker. Of course, he wasn't violent or anything, but, like, it's really up here, not in terms of his actions. It's all about being the Joker where it counts. Which, being able to understand why the Joker does what he does isn't always a good thing. Because as soon as you can be like, oh, I get why the Joker did that, it's kind of the whole point of the Joker. That's, if the Joker were a real person, what he would want. Because by empathizing with him, while it is both kind of that good thing of being able to empathize with someone you disagree with, it's dangerous because then you can be more forgiving of those kind of actions, which in terms of a real world situation could have consequences. And I don't want to be the guy who bitches about, a movie being like, oh my god, like, be one of those parents who's like, it's violence, it will make my kids violent. I don't want to do that at all. I just want to say that there's a chance this could have consequences in terms of, because there are real people who go through what the Joker is going through in this movie, and by making the Joker that much grounded, you're kind of inspiring some of those people who feel like society has rejected them. Which, again, from a story standpoint is really good. From a societal standpoint, could be dangerous because it could create, I don't want to say it could create real world Jokers, but I'm saying that it could be dangerous in general. With that said, I'm still excited for the movie, and I know if I were to direct the movie, I would direct in that way. But it did prompt an interesting conversation of, is this good? But anyway, I know that's a little too hard and heavy for a comic book movie, to have these kind of discussions with it, and it's one of the things where I don't think the Joker movie should be banned or anything. I just think that the people who watch it should be aware of that, so that maybe it's not a movie that everyone should see, it's a movie that people who handle it should see. That's just more of the debate I'm trying to make, or at least the question I'm trying to raise. It's not even a debate. I don't really want it to be a debate. I want it to be a conversation. That's kind of the standpoint that I have on it. And I just found it interesting that it seemed like there are very few people that I found online having that conversation. So I just wanted to bring it up. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm totally way off wrong, but I just found that really interesting. Because the Joker is such an infamous character that I just worried if there would be repercussions for this kind of a movie. I hope not. I really honestly hope not, because I love this kind of movie. I just want to bring it up. But now I'm drowning on way too long, so let's move on to the next topic, which is the Lion King trailer, which they've been showing us surprisingly little for that movie, and it's more so of a nostalgia thing. Like, the cast is incredible. Favreau, I'm super confident in him as a director, but I am a little nervous, I'm going to be honest, from this most recent trailer. Because for a normal trailer, it showed very little. The only character we really saw much of was Scar, which, you know, I've heard some people complain about his voice. I don't have a complaint about his voice. The only voice I'm complaining about right now is Jafar's voice. So Scar's doesn't really bug me. What bugs me about Scar more so is it's within their art style. They're going with a very realistic take on The Lion King in terms of how all the characters work. And it made me realize that, you know, while Scar doesn't look like a normal lion as you would see them, that's what makes him stand out, being that red fur with the black mane. Like, that I see as Scar. Whereas this just looks like, oh yeah, it's a lion that is a lion that maybe is not the king of the pack. Like, he's kind of like little wiry with his hair and like, I don't know, almost like a lion on crack. Like, it didn't totally feel like Scar, but I get it because that's within their art style. What worries me is the fact that we haven't seen the lions or the animals talk much. That's my only thing, is that I saw one comment that really summarized it very well. And it's, the comment said, this movie is either going to be really good or really weird. Like, and that's kind of where my worry is coming from. Not that the movie's going to be bad. I don't think it's going to be bad. I think, if anything, it could be weird. Just with these very realistic animals singing and talking as humans might not work as well as we want it to or think it will. Especially with the art style they're going for. So I'm kind of worried there, but overall I'm optimistic for this movie. I think it will be good. It's just now I have that thing of, ooh, it might not be good. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on the Lion King trailer. So moving on to the Rise of Skywalker trailer. So the first thing I want to say about this movie is a correction from my trailer reaction. Oh, actually, so the second thing I want to say is that. The first thing I want to say is please watch my trailer reaction for the Rise of Skywalker. Anyway, I assume you've seen it or you're pausing the video now to go watch it. But the point of what I want to talk about right away is that while watching the trailer, you hear this kind of evil laugh, and I'm like, oh, that's Snoke, because going into it, I had a feeling that J.J. Abrams going to be very apologetic and try and undo what Rian Johnson did to Snoke. So I was like, oh yeah, that's Snoke's laugh. While I was editing, I was like, that doesn't sound like Snoke. Is that? No, I gotta Google, because I think it's someone, but it can't be. Oh, it is. And the comments were like, that's Palpatine's laugh. Which is, again, when I was editing the trailer action, what I started to realize. So just a correction there, I know it's Palpatine. But what it does is really, I have really mixed feelings about by having Palpatine's laugh. Because apparently Palpatine is going to be in the movie. I've heard that he was at Celebration for the Star Wars Episode 9 panel and discussion. Maybe not panel, but at least a discussion to say, yes, I'm going to be in the movie. Which, my brain, the thing that I think makes the most sense for why Palpatine would be in the movie is that they're going to do the contingency plan that was in the extended universe, and I believe they have made canon. They're just going to use it for Episode 9 as opposed to what they could have done with, like, a movie in between 6 and 7. But anyway, if you don't know what the Emperor's contingency plan is, it's kind of the idea that he knew that he wanted to rule the galaxy even after death. So, I don't remember if it was through the Force or just general technology, but he uploaded his consciousness to a robot before he died. So when Vader threw him off and his body died, his consciousness still existed in this kind of robot that led the Empire until the final battles on, like, Jakku and all that, when I thought he was destroyed, but I guess maybe not. At least not in this continuity. So the idea could be that we'll see the Empire, or not the Empire, the Emperor, as basically his contingency plan, his consciousness uploaded to a robot. Which, again, I have mixed feelings about, because that could be done well, but I also could see it as more of an apology. Like, because that's what Episode 7 was. It was that, like, hey, look, we have so many things from the original trilogy, please watch it. And then I guess Rian Johnson came in and was very much so like, I mean, fuck it, we're going to tell a good film and make a good story, make a good, film. This happens to be Star Wars, not a good Star Wars movie. And people, that was very divisive, so now JJ's back on to be like, whoa, hey, but Star Wars, and just kind of doing a lot of the people-pleasing. Which, to be honest with you, I'm more of a fan of the Rian Johnson approach of make a good film first, Star Wars film second, whereas that kind of seems less of JJ's goal. JJ seems to be very nostalgia, people-pleasing based, and making a good film and a good Star Wars movie is there, but the people-pleasing's first kind of is like, I don't know if I'm totally on board with that, and I'm not sure if that's going to hold up. That would be good for them in terms of box office, hopefully, and getting people in the seats, but, like, making a film that means a damn, maybe less. But, anyway, that's kind of my worry there with Palpatine, is how they're going to execute that. I said execute, and then my brain went to execute Order 66. But anyway, I digress. It does kind of leave me a little bit worried of how they're going to do it. Because I think what would work and what would be cool is if... Because Luke, at the end of 8, basically said something along the lines of, strike me down and I will be more powerful than you can ever imagine, I will never leave you. And then he dies. What I would love to see in Episode 9 is the Force Ghost of Luke is now basically unkillable, so he goes to Kylo. It is just, could be more comedic, and I kind of hope it's not, but like, is with Kylo the entire time and won't leave Kylo alone. And is constantly basically acting as Kylo Ren's conscious. Only Kylo can hear his voice, and Luke is just there saying, no, don't do that. Well, that's wrong. Would your father be proud of that? Are you proud of that? Be the man that you can be. Basically just kind of being the conscience constantly around Kylo, basically trying to pull him towards the light. On contrast then, Palpatine can be there. He can go to Rey, see this powerful Force user, and throughout the movie try and seduce her to the darkness. So you have these two, probably the most powerful Jedi and the most powerful Sith, trying to seduce the other person to their allegiance. Which could lead to a really interesting final fight where both of them are at a point where, like, I'm conflicted. Like, Kylo could be like, I'm with the First Order, but now I'm feeling this sense of good, whereas Rey's like, I'm the last Jedi, but I'm now feeling this kind of darkness, and their final fight can be a fight of basically, I'm not a Jedi, you're not a Sith. We're just a good Force user against a not as good Force user, and kind of blur the lines, because I know that was something that I think it was JJ, but it was someone at Star Wars mentioned this trilogy is kind of going to be the last trilogy that really addresses Jedi versus Sith. And then from then on out, it will be Force user against Force user, as opposed to the Jedi, who are very much so, let's say white, Sith, black. Now, going forward, it's just going to be shades of gray fighting each other. And that's what this movie would be the final fight is along the spectrum of different shades of gray against another character still along that spectrum of a different shade of gray. Which I think would be a really interesting take on Star Wars and especially this movie, because both of them are at a point where they could go either way. Rey could be a Sith, Kylo could be a Jedi, but at the same time, I don't think it should be simplified to that. I do agree and like the idea of them fighting, or at least not even fighting, but at least existing as I'm not all good, I'm not all bad. Kind of that let the past die of what this trilogy has done in terms of the, look, I'm not a Jedi. I'm just a good Force user. And that kind of a thing. So, anyway, that's The Rise of Skywalker. I said in that trailer that I'm excited for the movie. I'm excited to see what they do. It's still that place of curiosity. And yes, there is excitement there, but I don't know. I don't know if it's that, like, yes, I'm going to see it opening night. I'm so pumped. I just can't wait for Star Wars. Like, it's less of that. And more of, like, I'm really intrigued to see what they do and how it affects Star Wars as a whole. And the story they tell in this movie. So, yeah, that's my thoughts there. Alrighty, in terms of gaming, we have, I might butcher this name, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, which basically made by some of the people who made Dark Souls. It's basically a ninja Dark Souls. It's definitely not my kind of game, because I just wouldn't be able to play it. I'd start and be like, alright, it's awesome, and I'm dead. Okay, let's try again, and I'm dead. And I'm dead. Okay. This is fun. And then that would just be all I get to play. It's just that one boss battle where I keep on dying and can't beat it. So I don't think this is my kind of game, but with that said, if it is your kind of game, it looks like it's really awesome and really cool. Definitely, like, the ninja aspect of this game I find really fascinating. The kind of stealth and the, like, sneak attacks and all that kind of stuff for a game that's supposed to be very hard and just have crazy bosses. Like, having that stealth side of it is something the Dark Souls games didn't really have a whole lot of. It was more so like, you see this person, go fuck them up. Now it's like, you see that person, okay, hide, wait for an opportune moment, then sneak attack them, and then fight them. Like, I find that interesting. And the Shadows Die Twice part of it means that basically respawning has consequence. So it's like, I think it's like you can die and get like a respawn if you have a certain thing, and then if you die you have to restart something. But kind of makes it a little bit easier, a little bit nicer, but also, I like games that kind of make respawning a mechanic. Like, Shadow of Mordor did it really well, to where you don't want to die ever, and if you do, that sucks. But anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts there. And the other thing, the last thing I want to talk about here, is the trailer for Star Wars Jedi-Fallen Order on the Best and Worst podcast that we did recently. Not that recently now, probably about 4 or 5 months. Basically, this was one of the games I listed on terms of my anticipated, just because it was a Star Wars game. We didn't know anything about it at the time, and now we know. It's a single-player Jedi game. Takes place between 3 and 4, when basically the Empire is hunting down Jedi. So that's cool, and I'm totally on board with this. Will I buy it? Maybe. I'm not totally sure. We just got basically a cinematic trailer, so I want to see what the gameplay looks like, what the story feels like, and all that kind of stuff. It's giving me a lot of the Starkiller Force Unleashed vibes. It really seems like that kind of a game. So, I liked those games. They weren't incredible, though. So I really want to see what this game does in terms of the actual gameplay and mechanics. Because the cinematic thing looked kind of cool, but didn't really pull me. It wasn't really interesting, for me at least. So, I don't know, I really got to see what else is there before I pull the trigger and buy it or anything, but I'm curious. It's kind of the same Force Awakens, Rise of the Skywalker trailer thing of like, it could be good or it could not be, we'll just have to wait and see. So, I'm going to go wait and see. But with that said, let me know what you thought of any of these topics we discussed in the comment section down below. Probably the next podcast we do will be in the normal setup in the Tucson office, so I'm excited for that. But please like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with all your friends, and I will see you guys on the next one. Stay classy. Later. Woo! I need to take a poop.